The episode begins in a dark, faraway mountain temple in the middle of nowhere as Morgaine Le Fay guides her son Mordred to a very powerful artifact, the Amulet of First Magic, the source of all earthly sorcery. This begins the chaos that is about to unfold in the world. Mordred has been so impatient, and complains that the trip to the temple better be worth it since was over centuries he's been waiting for this kind of power. A power enough to conquer the world and have a kingdom for himself at last. A bright, purple light emanates from inside the hand of a godly statue. With Morgaine's power, she opens the statue's hand, and Mordred eagerly picks up the amulet. Morgaine orders him to hand over the amulet, which he refuses. Mordred snatches the amulet for himself. For him, not being ready, not big, or old enough doesn't matter anymore because he is now strong enough. Taken aback by her son's words, Morgaine shoots a ray of her powers, but Mordred deflects it. With the amulet's power now in his full control, he transforms with a blue, red, and gold king-like suit and a gold crown. Using the amulet's power, Mordred declares having his own kingdom. Mordred proudly says he doesn't want to see his mother or anyone older than him ever again. He casts a spell banishing all adults from the world, including his mother. The adults start to vanish, from the homeroom teacher, the child's mother, and the cotton candy vendor at the zoo, to the guard at the subway station. At some other place, Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are fighting the villains Copperhead, Blockbuster, Cheetah, and KG Beast for trying to rob a gold vault. Just after the fight in which the villains were vanquished, Mordred's evil spell comes rushing towards them. Green Lantern tries to stop it, but the spell is too strong. He fails to do so unfortunately. The League and the villains along with the world's adults seem to be in another dimension with colors like purple, red, and black apparent. Huge blocks of rock float swiftly everywhere. The League and the villains try to figure out the situation when Batman mentions the absence of any children. Morgaine appears and answers Batman's question as a child's doing. She explains that it was Mordred who is responsible for how they ended up in a different dimension. Morgaine rages with her son's betrayal despite spending millennia taking care of him and preparing him to be a king. With the Amulet of First Magic, even Morgaine's sorcery cannot withstand the power Mordred holds. She offers to help the Justice League undo the spell, and comes up with a plan. Morgaine recites a spell, and the League members suddenly vanish. Meanwhile, Mordred comes flying over an amusement park, the Funsaland, and declares himself to be their king, making the amusement park his very own kingdom. He turns the park into a Gothic-like castle, and orders the children to follow him to his throne. There appears the 4 Justice League members, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern transformed into children with the help of Morgaine's spell which grants them back to the world. The 4 young superheroes enter the castle where Mordred is showing a lack of interest in trying to satisfy the needs of the children with his magic. Among the toys, a few are knights each with a different kind of armor. Mordred sees them in their childlike appearance and bursts into laughter. He smugly addresses them as Justice Babies. Mordred gives life to the knights given to one of the children, and has them fight the superheroes. This leaves the 4 with no choice but to fight Mordred's minions. They defeat the knights in a battle of strength and prowess with haste. Armed with the amulet's power and rage, Mordred traps them inside blocks of ice. Then he opens a trapdoor on the floor and dumps them into a kind of an underground pit. They try to flee through the floor's opening, but even with their powers, they cannot overcome Mordred, who set a spell barrier on the pit's entrance. A pair of red eyes emerge from the shadows as the door from one of the cells opens. Etrigan appears, who is now turned into a fire-breathing baby demon. Batman recognizes Etrigan and tries to encourage him to stop. Etrigan shoots fire and fights them. Wonder Woman scolds Etrigan, which made him cry. She then comforts him afterward. When they realize that Etrigan needs a diaper change, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Green Lantern go off and leave the baby to Superman. On the castle's grounds, the children enjoy their time in the castle, playing and running back and forth. With Wonder Woman's stern voice, everyone tones down and stops quietly. The children, however, refuse to acknowledge her authority, and one of them says that she is not their mother to begin with. Wonder Woman threatens to find their mother and tell them how disobedient they are. She orders them to wait outside for their parents, and the children comply. The 4 then plan to sneak up on the sleeping Mordred. When they were about to get the amulet, a child appears behind Superman and Green Lantern. This causes Mordred to wake up. They charge together and cling to the furious Mordred in order to get the amulet again. Mordred turns himself into a giant, which makes it hard for the superheroes to fight back. Their attempt didn't go smoothly as planned, and they were soon forced to retreat back to the castle. Mordred runs after them, but the door locks in time, keeping him out. As he is outside banging on the door for entry, the 4 try to devise a plan in order to defeat Mordred. They proceed to go on Green Lantern's plan and fight Mordred using the mecha robot Lantern Maid. Green Lantern starts on offense, unleashing cannons. Mordred emerges from the smoke caused by Lantern's attacks. He is now covered in a thick layer of armor with a horseman's axe. With the amulet's power, Mordred is much stronger. He launches a strike with his axe that sends Green Lantern to stumble on the ground, and the mecha suit disappears. Mordred impends Green Lantern of their defeat, unaware of the trap. The fight is set as a distraction, giving Superman the chance to steal the amulet. Mordred snags Superman, who is able to throw the amulet to Batman. Batman tries to help, but Mordred manages to catch him, which leaves him no choice but to pass the amulet to Wonder Woman. Mordred's power rages from his eyes, and he catches Wonder Woman afloat, but she's able to throw the amulet to Etrigan in time. Etrigan bites into it, destroying the amulet. However, Mordred has already absorbed a tremendous amount of power from the amulet, enough to fight the League. A little girl appears and demands her mother. Mordred, who shows his strong facade, flusters when he sees the little girl cry. Batman continues to taunt him, saying that he is afraid to grow up and be a man. Enraged, Mordred uses his remaining power to transform into a grown-up man. As a result, he subjects himself to his own spell and was sent to the other dimension. There he meets his mother, telling him that he's used all of his powers. Morgaine meets up with the Justice League and restores everything back to normal. Batman asks about what had happened to Mordred, to which she answers that Mordred only has eternal life now that he has broken the spell of eternal youth. In a remote castle, Morgaine returns to take care of her now old and weakened son. On episode 4, the scene opens with loud sounds of forging metal. A broad-shouldered man of old age with long dark hair can be seen hammering out a breastplate. It was Hephaestus, the blacksmith, who is currently crafting in his workshop, putting some finishing touches to his creation. When Ares appears, he demands the suit Hephaestus is working on. Hephaestus completes the construction of the Annihilator, his latest masterpiece. It is a gigantic golem-like suit ready to feed on mankind's hatred and aggression. Ares draws his sword to test it, and the Annihilator awakens and begins to fight him until he orders it to stop. Surprised and amused by how his commission turned out, Ares let out a grin, telling Hephaestus to pack up the Annihilator. After possessing the Annihilator, Ares goes to a war-torn city in the northern part of Casnia. He disguises himself as Mr. Sira and meets Nardoc, the head of the northern faction, to demonstrate the power of the weapon. It easily fends off the attacks of a group of Nardoc's soldiers who are firing at it. Nardoc expresses interest, but also mentions his concerns about how poor his people are and that they cannot afford the weapon at that time. Ares does not care about money. They can pay him later. The Annihilator is now under the command of Nardoc, and this marks Ares' evil plan. Meanwhile, in a city, two robbers try to flee from what appears to be a bank heist using a getaway car. Unfortunately, they run into Wonder Woman, who is taking a day off. She punches the car, instantly stopping it and sending the robber off of it. She manages to stop the robber's escape without putting in much effort. Irritated by the incident, she is about to punish the robbers in her own way when Jaeon calls with a mission regarding the war in Casnia. The civil war has a sudden outburst again, and Queen Audrey requests the Justice League's assistance. Jaeon implies that the war could easily affect the region badly and will ignite conflicts among its people. Wonder Woman complains about how humans are senseless yet very hostile. Jaeon then warns her to keep her emotions in check, as they both are greatly affected by the time they spent with humanity. Nonetheless, she goes ahead to pick up the other two members of the team on the way. It was the brothers, Hawk and Dove. They are in the middle of a bar fight with a group of men who are opposing Dove's views on patriotism. Unable to settle the commotion, they transform into their hero suits and engage in a fistfight, which only stopped upon Wonder Woman's arrival. In the camp of southern Casnians, Ares once again disguises himself as a monk and urges the soldiers to attack the northern camp and seize the land that is rightfully theirs. With his powerful and encouraging words, he deceives them into a civil war. The southerners bite Ares' taunt, and the commander organizes their fleet for an attack on the north. Wonder Woman, Hawk, and Dove meet a surprisingly worse situation than they expected. The Annihilator was in the lead of an attack against the southern forces. Tank shells can hardly do any damage to it. The Annihilator continues to wreak havoc among the opposing region while Wonder Woman, Hawk, and Dove attempt to stop the violence. However, it is unstoppable, even with their combined efforts and powers. It eliminates all targets from its sight. Before the Annihilator hits them with a tank, Diana gets a good look at its breastplate. Seeing the mark, she immediately recognizes its creator, Hephaestus. She carries Hawk and Dove over to a safe place where they retreat to plan out. Dove suggests abducting the leaders of the two factions and bringing them together for talks of negotiation. Wonder Woman agrees with the plan, as this will buy them enough time while she's out to see a man about a suit of armor. In Nardoc's bunker, Ares as Mr. Sira confronts Nardoc regarding his approach to the war, since the southern forces fall back and the battle dies down. The northern forces decide not to push ahead in taking over the southern region by Nardoc's command. Mr. Cena cannot hide his frustration and yells about how he gave the Annihilator to conquer the south. Nardoc protests that their only interest is to keep their lands secure and safe. Ares, who does not care about what Nardoc thinks, proceeded to mortify humans whose only purpose in the world is to slaughter one another. He threatens Nardoc that if they settled for the way Nardoc plans the war, the south forces will have a chance to destroy the north. Nardoc, who grows tired of Ares' demands, orders the latter out, but Ares refuses and replaces Nardoc as the leader. Wonder Woman arrives at the workshop to confront Hephaestus Hephaestus about the armor. He then proudly admits to creating the Annihilator for Ares. Wonder Woman asks how to terminate the Annihilator. Hephaestus confides that he always leaves a small weakness in all of his creations as a preventive measure for one becoming too powerful to control, but he refuses to tell her its exact weakness. Having no time for Hephaestus's mind games, Wonder Woman flies away, not getting an answer from him. With a proposal of peaceful negotiation, Dove sneaks in to find Nardoc in the northern camp, where he meets Ares disguised as Nardoc. Dove was captured. In the southern camp, Hawk grabs the leader when suddenly, gunfires and explosions are heard, and the camp is now under attack. Dove is now tied up in front of the Annihilator, which leads the northern forces. Hawk jumps in to untie Dove from the Annihilator. They try to stop it, but the fighting still go out of control as the Annihilator charges towards the southern camp. Tanks are being catapulted into the air. The Annihilator tosses them on top of each other, bringing them to an explosion. The soldiers don't believe Wonder Woman when she steps in, telling the soldiers to lay their arms down as they are being used. One soldier hit her in the face as she tries to cease the gunfire. In her rage, she snatches the gun, bringing it over the soldier's head as she wants to hit him back. The soldier looks up with fear in his eyes. She realizes that the Annihilator is fueled by their rage. She immediately tells Dove about its weakness. Dove hurries in between the soldiers and the Annihilator. He instructs them to lower their guns as they cannot defeat it either way. Hawk attempts to rescue Dove, whom he believed is in grave danger, but Wonder Woman holds him back. The Annihilator raises its hand over Dove, and although hesitantly, the soldiers follow Dove's instructions. Without aggression and rage, the Annihilator is deprived of its own fuel and shuts down. From the flock of soldiers, Ares appears and angrily orders both sides to keep fighting. But seeing how they've been used like puppets, the soldiers decide to stand down. Hearing how he lost the fight, Ares promises to be back, igniting wars through prejudice, misery, and inequality. He disappears into thin air as the Kasnians retreat, and the League members once again complete their mission successfully through peace.